Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to do a full insurance breakdown. Let's get started. So the first thing you're going to want to do is click on the Add Insurance, and yes, the patient is the subscriber. If we have it on file, you'll just click Pick from List and search for the plan by the group number. That's the easiest way to do it. You can also search by the employer, the carrier, or the group name. I always find it easier to search by the group number. So if we have it on file, you'll just double click and then fill in the note box. But in this case, I'm going to show you how to do the full breakdown. So yes, the patient is the subscriber. You'll add in what carrier it is. In this case, it is Delta Dental of California. You'll want to fill in the group name and the group number. So after I've added the group number, I'll go back in and just copy the full plan name and paste it into the group name box. You'll want to put in the date that the plan was verified. In this case, I'm putting the subscriber ID just as 123. You can use the actual patient's subscriber ID or their social security number. Then you'll go down to the note box, right click and insert the quick note, and you'll want to fill in all of the information as thoroughly as possible. Now, Delta Dental's website is pretty good about having their information online. So is like MetLife and a few other ones. Most of the time you'll have to call the insurance company to get specific information. But like in this case, a lot of the stuff is online. So after you find out if it runs on a calendar or fiscal year, you're going to want to find out who all is covered under the policy. So sometimes the policies will cover the employee only, sometimes they'll cover the employee plus one dependent or employee and spouse. In this case, it's not on the website, so I would have to call Delta Dental. One of the main things that you want to look for when verifying insurance are waiting periods. If a patient has a 6-month waiting period or a 12-month waiting period and we render any kind of services, those services will not be covered. So you definitely want to find that out before the patient even comes in. A lot of times it'll be on basic or major services or ortho. The next thing you'll want to find out is if they have used any of their benefits for the year. In this case, this patient has used some benefits, so you'll want to put that in the history. Once you put that information in, you'll want to find out if ortho is a covered benefit. Ortho is another tricky one. Sometimes there will be age limits, sometimes there will be waiting periods. So you definitely want to get as much of that information as possible before the patient comes in, and especially before you treatment plan any kind of Invisalign. So in this case, ortho is covered. It's covered 50% up to $1,500. So you'll want to initial whenever you call and end date, and then find out what the method of verification is. Most of the time it'll be online or the phone. Sometimes they'll send you a fax. You'll want to get the rep's name and a reference number or confirmation number if you were to call in. If you weren't sure of the fee schedule, which Delta Dental's is easy, it's Delta Dental PPO. The timely filing limit is very important. If we were to submit a claim after that timely filing limit, insurance will not cover it. And another thing you want to search for is a missing tooth clause. That is extremely important because if a patient had a tooth extracted prior to their insurance coverage and they do have a missing tooth clause, insurance will not cover anything that is done on that tooth. So you'll want to double check on that as well. Next thing is you're just going to want to go through and look for the frequency limitations and percentage of coverage on the different procedures. We have most of them written down in this breakdown, so you'll want to find out if they're covered once every 6 months, twice per calendar year, if they share frequency with other procedures. For example, a periodic exam oftentimes shares frequency with a limited exam, so it's just things like that that you'll want to search for. And sometimes you just have to click around on the website to find what you're looking for. If you want a quicker way to get a breakdown of benefits, it will be to call an insurance company. However, sometimes it can take a while to actually get connected to a representative. One thing with exams that you'll want to look out for, especially the periodic and limited exams, is you'll want to find out if they share frequency. For example, if a patient came in for a periodic exam and their exams were covered once every 6 months, and they came in for a periodic exam on Tuesday, November 21st, and then they came back a week later for a limited exam, and those exams share frequency, then the limited exam would not be covered. So you'll want to look out for that. And also with a limited exam, we need to find out if same-day treatment is okay. A lot of times you'll have to call the insurance company to find that out, but it is a very important piece of information to know, because if a patient came in and same-day treatment was not okay and they did a same-day crown, the crown would not be covered. So you'll want to put in the frequency limitations for the x-rays, and you'll also want to find out if they are covered at 100%. Sometimes they're covered at 90% or 80%, so you'll definitely want to keep an eye out for that. The panoramic x-ray and the FMX, the full mouth x-rays, those will always share frequency. One thing to look out for cleanings, same thing as the exams, you'll want to find out if they share frequency with the perio maintenance and the D4346. A lot of times they'll share frequency or they'll be in addition to those codes, so just be on the lookout for that as well. One thing you'll want to be on the lookout for fluoride and sealants are age limits. A lot of times insurance companies will cover them up to a certain age, so you'll definitely want to find that information out before the patient has those services done, so that way we can find out if they'll be covered and there won't be any unexpected out-of-pocket costs to the patient. See right here, so that fluoride is covered up to the age of 19, but it is covered twice per calendar year. And then sealants, more often than not, there's an age limit on sealants, so you'll just want to find that out when doing the breakdown. And sometimes insurance will cover up to certain age limits on certain teeth, so you'll want to be on the lookout for that as well. Next are fillings. When looking for fillings, you want to find out what the frequency limitation is and if they downgrade on fillings. Fillings and crowns, but right now we're looking at fillings. So here it is for fillings. It looks like it's covered once per tooth within a 24-month period. And a lot of times you'll have to call. Most of the time insurance companies will not put that information on their website, so 99% of the time you have to call them to find out if they downgrade on fillings or crowns. So next we're moving on to the scaling and root planing. We call it gum therapy. You'll want to find out what the frequency limitation is, what percentage it's covered at, which in this case perio is covered at 80%. You'll want to find out if you can do all 4 quads on the same day. Looks like most of the time you have to call for that though. Next, we're going to look to see if endo is considered basic or major, which it looks like it's considered basic, and the same thing with oral surgery. So just scroll down until you can find one of the extraction codes, and then you can figure out what percentage it's covered off of there. If it's covered at 80%, you'll know that it's considered basic. If it's covered at 50%, you'll know that it's considered major. So in this case, it is considered basic because it's covered at 80%. Night guards. Most of the time you can just search for night guards depending on what website you're on. Delta Dental's is really easy because you can search by certain procedure codes. So in this case, nothing popped up whenever we searched for it, so it is not covered. For crowns, you'll want to find out what the frequency limitation is, if it's what percentage it's covered at. A lot of times, crowns will be covered 1 every 5 calendar years, 8 calendar years, 1 every 10 calendar years, and so on. You'll also want to find out if it's paid out on the seat or the prep date. If it's paid on the seat date, that means they pay whenever the patient comes back and we place the permanent crown on. If it's paid on the prep date, then that's whenever we do the core buildup. You'll also want to find out if insurance will downgrade on crowns and if it's okay to bill out the buildup on the same day as the crown. A lot of times implants will have the same frequency limitations as crowns, but it's always better to just double check. And also, this is where the missing tooth clause is very important. If there is a missing tooth clause, the implant on that tooth will not be covered. If there's no missing tooth clause, then insurance would most likely pay for it. As I said earlier, Delta Dental's website is really easy because you can search for specific codes. So in this case, the cone beam, the bone graft, you can find out if those are covered or not. Most of the time with other insurance companies, you will have to call in for that information. I personally just like to put a few little question marks next to the things that I have to call. Just so that way as I'm scrolling through on the phone with a representative, I can just find out real quick what questions I need to ask. And then we go down to ortho. You'll want to check the ortho maximum. A lot of times it'll be different than what the annual maximum is. So in this case, the ortho maximum is $1,500. So you'll want to put that information in there. Also what percentage it's covered at, which we saw it was covered at 50% earlier. If there's a deductible that's applied, most of the time deductibles will be waived for orthodontics, but sometimes it's not, so you'll want to double check on that. which in this case there is no deductible. Another important thing is age limit. Most of the time, insurance companies will cover ortho up to like age 18. So that's something that you'll want to double check on. That's not entirely the case for every person, but most of the time it is. You'll also want to find out how often they pay out for ortho, and that will determine whether or not we need to send the ortho claim monthly. If they pay out automatically monthly, then we don't have to send the claim, but that's something that you would want to call and double check with a representative. Now that we've gotten most of the information, we can go into the benefit information and fill in the annual maximum, the deductibles, the frequency limitations, and so on. So you'll want to put the annual maximum in the individual, and then there's usually an individual deductible and a family deductible. So you'll want to find both of those and put those as well. You'll also want to look for the the lifetime maximum for ortho, which we put that in earlier. So we already know that that is $1,500, and the percentage that ortho is covered at is 50%. You want to make sure that all of these are correct, and you can go in and change each individual one if you needed to, but in this case we'll just use the shortcut, and you'll want to see if they're covered at 100% or 80% or 50%. Sometimes it'll be 100%, 90% for basic, 60% for major. Sometimes it'll be 100% for preventive, 80% for basic, 90% for perio, and then 50% for major services. So you'll just want to go in and double check on those. So right now we are looking for the age limit for fluoride, which we saw that earlier, but it doesn't hurt to go back in and double check. And then also the frequency limitations for the bite wings, the pano, as well as the exams. Now for these, you'll want to make sure that whenever you put in the frequency limitations that you change the drop-down box. This way it will specify whether something is covered twice per calendar year or every 2 years or a certain number per month, etc. You want to change that to twice per year. So you'll want to go in and add how much insurance has been used for the year. In this case, the patient has used some benefits for 2017, so you'll want to add that so that way it reflects properly on the treatment plan. Also to give the patient a better idea of how many benefits they have left, and also to help prevent any dissatisfaction with the patient. So once you have all of that information in, you'll want to copy and paste the bottom portion into the plan note. You want to be very careful when changing any of the plan note information, because that changes the information for every patient that is on that plan. Once you're done with the insurance breakdown, you'll want to go into the treatment plan and update the fees. And that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, definitely reach out.